Hello, my group and I today will be presenting on the topic of the Norman conquest and the effects it had on English language and culture. So, my team is made up of five members: Chai Yen, Sophia, Rao Qiyu, Su Xinlei, as well as myself, Yang Tianbao. In our presentation, we will mainly be discussing 5 points. First, we will introduce what exactly is the Norman conquest. Then we will discuss the main players within this historical event, as well as what exactly happened during this time period. And finally, our main focus will be on showcasing various social media postings and videos we found on the impacts the Norman conquest had on the English language as well as on England's culture. So, of course, we have learned this in class that the Norman conquest of England took place mainly during the 1066 AD when William, Duke of Normandy, and often called William the Conqueror after this, invaded England with his Norman army and defeated King Harold II at the Battle of Hastings. So this brought on the merging of Anglo-Saxon and Norman cultures, really mixing English and a lot of French culture brought by the Normans as well, and lays the foundation for medieval England as well as late Middle English and modern English that we speak and learn about today. So, as we mentioned before, one of the most focal points and important events that happened during the Norman conquest was the defeat of King Harold at the hands of William. So, as we can see here, the three main players is, of course, Harold Goswin, the Earl of Essex, which was leading the English army, and William, the Duke of Normandy, leading the Norman army and the French army at the Battle of Hastings. Of course, there is also another important person in this event, Harold Hardrada, which was actually before, his time was before the conquest. He's very important because he was actually the king of Norway, which invaded France and brought a lot of Norman and Norwegian culture into France. And he is actually the ancestor of William, Duke of Normandy. And here we can see a lot of major events that happened during the Norman conquest. The first, of course, is the defeat of King Harold at the Battle of Hastings, which happened during the October of 1066 AD. And then William's capture of London, which happened very soon after King Harold fell, and the rest of his army retreated back to their own lands. And then we can see the next month, during December, William is crowned William the First by the church and is officially the ruler of England by that point. And then the next year, in November 1069, William's harrying of the north of England. So he pretty much conquered and united all of England by this point. But alas, very soon we can see that he is defeated by some rebels.
Hello everyone, I'm Su Xinlei. Like Alex mentioned before, the Battle of Hastings was the most important event in the Norman conquest. So here are some interesting information about the battle that we gathered on various social media platforms. On the left side, we can see historian Dean Snow uploaded the message on Twitter. Today in 1066, at the Battle of Hastings, an English army was catastrophically defeated after a brutal day of attrition. The king, his brothers, and the flower of his nobility were hacked to death on the blood-drenched ridge. It was the end of an era. This efficiently summarized the exact point in which William won the battle. With the death of King Harold, on the right side we can see an image depicting this battle that the British Museum has posted on Twitter as well.
Tapestry of it. Despite looking like a Game of Thrones season finale drawn by an 8-year-old boy, the Baywatch tapestry captures the full force of the battle. It's just like being there, but in wool. Here's the Norman archers, steaming in on their blue horses. Here's a sort of stick fight bit, some chopped up people down here. His head's off. He'll be furious about that.
So, after the Battle of Hastings, William effectively conquered England. He then introduced the French language to the English court, which has had an enormous effect on the English language. Another post by Dan Snow here explains how the Norman conquest changed English. A French-speaking elite took the land and power, a revolution still reflected in our language. Workers used Old English words for the pigs, cows, and sheep they tended, which were transformed into pork, beef, and mutton when they hit the Lord's table. This is just a fraction of the new terms William introduced to English, and the fusion of French and Old English gradually became the modern English we speak today. During the centuries after the Norman conquest, French even became the official language used by the English royalty and nobility for over 300 years. Some even argue for 600 years, as seen posed here in the picture to the right.
Hello everyone, my name is Rao Qiyu. I will discuss the impact of the Norman conquest on English culture. One important information we have gathered from Facebook and other social media said that since the Norman conquest, slavery was no longer legal in England. In fact, the first person to propose the abolition of slavery was William the Conqueror. However, slavery was not banned because of moral issues. It was because the French king needed to pay the bills and become richer. Yeah. Although the Normans bringing their own serfdom to England to perform hard labor instead of using slaves, and as a result of these legal reforms, it led to the eventual decline and abolition of the practice of slave labor in England. Besides abolishing slavery, there are other important impacts the Norman conquest had on English culture. After the 13th century, English people would incorporate French and Latin words directly into their vocabularies. This was originally done by the nobility to discipline their upper class. Gradually, English peasants were exposed to this mixed language through their interaction with the ruling classes, and the elements of Anglo-Norman gradually entered the language of the common people. It was not only in the everyday language of England that the influence was felt. The Norman conquest also made a major contribution to the progress of England in terms of its literature and governance. In literature, French literature and courtly traditions were introduced, and in governance, the Normans introduced feudalism in England, influencing the social structure and the governance of England. All in all, the Norman conquest had a profound impact on English culture, and let's hear what Miss Chang has to say about this subject.
William winning was like Brexit backwards. Britain was suddenly part of Europe, and that meant everything had to change. There were new castles, new cathedrals, even the Tower of London, and amazingly, all built by one man, Norman architecture.
To sum up, the Norman conquest and the impact it made on England's language and culture is something that many linguists and historians agree to be a focal point in the evolution of the English language. The influx of French influences brought on by the Normans had an important role in shaping the modern-day English we use and study now. The more we learn about the topic, the more we realize just how much the Norman conquest had a hand in building the foundation for the future growth of the English language and culture. The influx of French terminology and language structure has really helped refine English and shape its transformation into Middle English and the wave of fantastic literary work that came after. The conquest also helped push British culture into the rest of Western Europe, making a long-lasting cultural connection that we still see to this day. Alright, that's all for our group. Thank you for your watching.